welcome to this month's Grief Chatter, the next chapter. My name is Kim Smith, and this is
Paige, Rahn.
And we are talking about borrowed memories. So this was inspired by my love of a certain historical drama. It's called When Calls the Heart. It's one of those storylines that's now been around. They will soon be recording season 14. They just finished season 13 for us to all see. But there was one particular episode in this season 13 that really grabbed my attention. And we have used this in 3 support groups so far. We'll use it again next week. So if you happen to be watching this and you're in our West Bank support group, hey, you get a heads up. But what happens is, in the first 5 seasons, you have 2 main characters, Elizabeth and Jack. Jack is a Mountie, and he's this heroic Mountie, and Elizabeth is a school teacher. And at first, they rub each other like this, and it's comical. And then they get married, and she is pregnant with their first child, and he's killed in the line of duty. I know that's a spoiler alert, but you can find it everywhere on the internet. And so the story continues. Little Jack is born. And as little Jack grows up, he wants to know about his dad, and they're all very intentional about making sure that he knows that he was loved and cherished, and there's just so many parts to that. They gave him his dad's medal, and it was his badge of courage. When he would wear it, he would put it inside his little vest, and he would feel so courageous when he would go to school and he would deal with other kids, and then he lost said medal. And so they began to talk about the fact that it wasn't as much him wanting the medal as it was the fact that he had no memories of his father.
Yes.
And he wanted that connection. He wanted to feel as though he knew him. And so one of the characters who had never met Jack the Mountie said, I so wish that I could tell him stories about his dad, but I didn't know him. And the character Elizabeth, just like the light bulb, you see the light bulb come up, that's exactly what it looked like on the show. And she's like, oh, I know what we're going to do. So we flash forward to a scavenger hunt. And it's a scavenger hunt different than any I've ever seen. And so what they do is they have the clues. And so little Jack is going to go on a scavenger hunt. But this one is where he is going to find memories.
Yes.
And so the very first place is the saloon. And that may sound very unusual for a little kid. But the saloon in that little town was the center of every kind. It was the school at the beginning. It was everywhere that people gathered. And that was where his parents connected, and that's where they got married. And so he gets to see a wedding photo of his parents, and he gets to see this little box, and he gets to, and those are now his memories that he can carry forward. Yes. And so then they give him the next clue, and the next clue is jail. Oh my goodness, jail. And so he runs off to the jail, and inside of the jail is somebody who should not be in jail because it's the judge of the town. But he explains that your dad arrested me because that's what the evidence looked like, but he was so smart that he figured out that that was not what was going on, and we worked together too. Yeah. And so he goes on this scavenger hunt, and in the midst of that, he gets to borrow memories of his father. And so what we have proposed to our groups is we're going to propose to you, think about your loved one, and if you've had multiple losses, just aim for one at the moment, and come up with 3 people that you would want someone to meet. Let's just imagine Paige. You're going to take Paige on a scavenger hunt. She's not met your loved one, and you want her to get as balanced of a picture. So don't pick 3 people who know the same things. In other words, find 3 people who have different perspectives. And if it's 2 people who have kind of the same memories and they could share, just count those as one. So 3 categories of people, and you're going to take Paige around, and after she meets those 3 people, she's definitely going to feel as though she has had a glimpse of who your loved one is. Now Paige is going to share her own answers to that quest. The 3 people that she would have you meet in order to meet her loved one.
Oh, my sweet Graham, who would be 96 tomorrow.
Oh, nice timing on this.
Yeah, I know, that's perfect timing. So the first, of course, would be my mom. Obviously, my children had never met Graham, but there's so many facial expressions that my little girl has. That is her, and I tell her often, "Oh my gosh, you remind me of my own Grammy." So my own mom is doing a wonderful job at being the second generation Grammy, and I just know my own Gram would just love all of this. The second would actually be, I know you're not from here, but when we say a New Orleans aunt, it's like a childhood friend of your parents, or people that in your life who have been around longer than you. So my New Orleans Aunt Joanne is a lifelong friend of my mom's, and she has already started sharing stories that she had as a child with my grandmother. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just love this. And the third is my very best friend from high school. We'll call her Lou. That's her nickname. Lou knew my Gram on her own little level. They shared their own closeness, and there were times that Graham celebrated Lou's birthday and Christmases, and so she knows that perspective. And every April 1st, she reaches out, "Happy birthday to Graham," and she'll share stories of remember this and this, and it's like, oh, it's keeping her memory here, but teaching these kids that I wish had the opportunity to meet her. This is what she was like, and I often tell them, my Gram was fun Gram. Your Grammy is fun Grammy, because she learned from mine, who never thought of, sure, we'll hopscotch. Sure, we'll get on a trampoline. Why wouldn't we?
Just a wild guess for the future. Who's going to be the fun Grammy in about 15, 20 years? Yep, I think it's going to be this one right here.
Hopefully so.
And so, as I had shared with the groups, but I shared different memories. So 3 of my grandparents died before I was born. And yet I feel as though I know them. I mean, I had one grandfather who died 35 years before I was ever born.
Wow.
And yet I know him. At least I know him through the borrowed memories, because there were a couple of characteristics of his that when I hear about them, they remind me so much of myself. So that even though our paths did not cross in this life, I still am a representation of what he represented.
Yes.
And I have a grandmother who we barely missed each other. And there are so many things about her that I carry forward, either with knowledge of how she was or with no knowledge. And so we will close with this. I was speaking in church a few years ago, standing up there, don't even remember what specifically I was talking about. And I came down, and this sweet little lady who had known me my entire life said, "You are so much like your grandmother." And I'm just, really? And so she started to explain to me how my grandmother was, and in that type of setting, because I'd heard about her in other settings, but not in that one. And it was really cool. Like, even though I didn't get to meet her in that moment, it was if I did.
Yes.
I got a glimpse of who she was, and then it was especially fun because somehow or another I'm carrying on her legacy without even being aware of it. So our challenge to you is to, whether it's for the next generation, which obviously is a perfect way to use the borrowed memories, even the scavenger hunt.
Yes.
Like that's a really cool idea for children, to be able to have them borrow memories from people, and that story ended in a way that I wouldn't have been surprised who they brought back from out of town to give memories, because it was the person who plays Jack's mom, which is Brooke Shields. You know, somebody maybe that you know. But what she brought was one piece that I didn't show in the group. What she brought was a letter that Jack had written before he ever married, and just his wishes for the future, which included a son.
Oh.
And she gave the letter, she let little Jack read the letter, and then she gave the letter to him to keep. That he was being thought of even before he was ever born. And so just imagine what it would be like to help the next generation know the people that they weren't physically able to connect with, and yet through borrowed memories they can have a relationship.
Good stuff.
There we go. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next month.
Be kind to you.